Hi, today I'm going to be talking about narrative writing in first grade. Your first question might be, what is a narrative? A narrative is a story. It can be used to tell about an interesting experience or to retell a familiar story. A narrative includes a beginning, a middle, and an end. These are all very important elements when you are writing a narrative. It uses temporal words such as first, second, third, next, last, then, beginning, middle, end, finally, one day, later, in the morning, etc. There's so many words, and these words help you transition from the different parts of the story. You'll use them from when you're moving from your beginning to the middle, and again from the middle to the end of your story to help tell when these things happen, the sequence, the order that they took place in. A narrative should include lots of details. The details help keep the reader interested and engaged in your writing, and the senses can be used to describe the characters, the setting, the actions, and the feelings. I want to make my story really interesting and rich. I don't want it to be boring. I don't want my readers to fall asleep. I want to engage them in what I'm doing. So now how do we get started? The most important thing is to have a plan for your writing. When you have it planned out ahead of time, you'll know what you're doing and your ideas will be well thought out and you'll be able to add a lot more interesting details. So for step one, you're going to go ahead and touch and tell. And this means that I'm going to think of an idea. It should be a small moment from a personal experience. I can even touch the paper and tell the story out loud. I might tell it to myself, I might tell it to a friend or somebody else nearby. You'll want to make sure that you include what happens in the beginning, middle, and end. This is a great time to plan out your ideas. You might not include all of your details right now, but just get an idea of what you want to happen and the order you want to tell your story in. Step two is to sketch. I'm going to sketch my ideas on the paper. That means I'll use a pencil and I'll just draw a small picture of the parts of my story, what happened in the beginning, in the middle, and the end of the story. I don't need to include everything in my picture, and it will not have a lot of details. It's just a simple sketch. It just helps me remember the parts of my story and know what I want to write when I get started writing. Okay. Step three includes the writing and the illustration. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put my story onto the paper. I'm going to write my words of my story and add details to the illustrations as well. This is a great time to also review your work. Once you finish writing all of your story, read it again. Does it make sense? Do I have all the parts of my story? Do I have a beginning, middle, and end? Did I spell my high frequency words correctly? Did I listen to the sounds? These are all great questions to ask when you are finished writing and you're ready to just check your work again. Sometimes when we write, we go so quickly, we have such great ideas and we just want to get them on the paper. We forget words that we really know how to write, and so we just when we look at it again, we can fix those little mistakes and make it look better to share with other people. So now I'm going to show you an example of what this might look like for a first grader. My step one is to touch and tell. So right now I just have my paper in front of me and I just want to say my story out loud. I just want to start getting my ideas in order and start thinking about all the parts of my story. So it might look like this. One day I went to the pumpkin patch. I found a pumpkin and brought it home to carve a face. So you'll notice my story is really simple. It doesn't have a lot of details, but I did include something that happened at the beginning. I went to the pumpkin patch. In the middle, I picked out my pumpkin and brought it home. And at the end of the story, I carved a face in it. I have all my parts, I'm just lacking the details. So that's something that I'll want to keep in mind when I start actually writing. I might practice this step several times. I might tell my story over and over just to get some of those ideas all set in my head so that I can do a better job when I'm writing so that I have those ideas ready. Step two is to do my sketch. So right now I just took my pencil, I drew a little picture of what happened at the beginning of my story and an arrow to show the difference by the end of the story. My story was about a pumpkin, so I just showed how it changed from being a pumpkin to a jack-o'-lantern. I might have shown some other things I might have done. I might have shown me sitting with my family and carving the face in it, or I might have shown a picture of going to the pumpkin patch. Lots of different things I can do. The important thing right now in this phase, this step, is just to sketch, just make it real simple. You don't need to add a lot of details. You can do that later once you've finished writing your whole story. All right, step 3 is going to be the actual writing. This is the time to put all my ideas on the paper and try to include as many details as I can. This is what my story sounds like. Here's the beginning. One day, I went to the pumpkin patch. I looked for a big orange pumpkin. It had a green leaf and a long vine. So this was just the beginning of my story. As you'll notice, some of the words are not spelled correctly, and that's okay. That's okay. When you are writing, sometimes your ideas are going so fast and you just want to write them down on your paper and you forget how to spell things, or you hear the sounds a certain way, or maybe you just don't know how to spell that word and you're just listening to the sounds the best you can. So however you write it during this time is great, as long as you're trying your best to listen to those sounds, think about word patterns that we've learned in class, think about your high frequency words that you know, and just get the sounds on the paper the best you can. You'll also want to be checking to make sure you have a capital letter, you've got spaces between your words, and you're ending with punctuation at the end. Here's the middle of my story, and then I'll move on to the end. Next, I brought my pumpkin home. We put the newspaper on the floor, and my dad helped me cut the pumpkin. I scoop out the seeds, and it was messy. Then my mom helped me carve the face. Now, as you'll notice, I used some of those temporal words that we talked about earlier. They help me know the order of my story. I used the word next. I used the word then. And you'll see in a moment that I'll be using the word last to tell the end of my story. I'm going to keep reading. My pumpkin is not scary. I like the mouth best. Last, we put the pumpkin on the porch with a candle inside. At night, it can glow. And again, here's that word last. It helps indicate that I've reached the end of my story. It lets everybody know that I'm finishing up and I've included all the details that I want to tell you about my story. All right, the last part of step 3 is to review my work and illustrate. So this is a time you'll notice for my illustration, I added some color to my picture just to add that extra special detail to make it a little bit more interesting when I'm ready to finish my work and share it with other people. You might want to change your picture. You might want to add some extra details in the background. You could draw yourself in the picture, any other characters that might be in your story. Those would all be great details to add to your illustration at this time. When I was reviewing my work, I went through and looked at my high frequency words. For example, one, the word went, the word to, the. These are high frequency words and they need to be spelled correctly. I also looked at some words that I can blend together. For example, the word big, big, big. And make sure I'm including all of those sounds. Finally, I'm going to look for more complex patterns that we've been learning in class. For example, 2 E's to make that long vowel sound, or the E and the A that work together. Make sure I included all those. I've got a silent E over here. Did I include that each time? You'll see this word I marked in red to show you. Before, I had written the word looked ending with the letter T because that's what my ears heard. But then I thought about it and I know that that word needs to end with the letters ED to finish it up and make it look correct. So I changed that right now. Here, continuing along, I read through my story again, and some things I didn't know how to spell, so I just left them, sounded out the best I can. A mom or dad might notice that it's missing a letter P here for the word pumpkin, but that's okay. I can't really hear it with my ears, so I just tried to sound it out the best I can. Down here, you'll notice that I changed the letter S from the letter Z. I had heard the letter Z before when I said seeds. I thought I heard the sound Z, but I know when I make a plural, it needs to be the letter S. Same with the word messy. I originally had written the letter E, and I know that should be the letter Y. I'm thinking about spelling patterns that I know from class and trying my best to apply those. Again, here with the letter Y to end that word. All right. Finally, last but not least, when you finish your story, don't forget to share your work. You worked so hard on writing your paper. You want to make sure that others get to see it and hear it as well. You can read your story to your family, to your friends, to your teachers, whoever else is around, and display it in your home or classroom. Put it up on the wall, put it on the fridge, show everyone the hard work that you're doing. Remember that you're an author and you want to keep on writing. The more you practice, the better and better you will get. Thanks for listening. Here are a few references to see where I got our information from. Lucy Calkins is the writing program that some of the information was attained through. And also I followed the standards for English Language Arts for first grade foundational skills and writing skills. Thank you.